toilets. We still have a lot of properties here in Jacksonville that have the 3.5 gallon per flush and even the 1.6. Technology today in water sense labeled products are anywhere from 1.28 to 0.8 gallon per flush. We are implementing 0.8 gallon per flush toilets in all of our multifamily projects, which is significant savings.
22 Jacksonville apartment complexes of 300 units or more were retrofitted in the first year of the program. Together, those retrofits saved a calculated 126,000 gallons of water per day. That's enough to fill the pool at the Jaguar Stadium 26 times. But guess what? The actual water savings are higher.
The reason that we found that we're seeing more actual savings than we measured is because of leaks. When you look at multifamily properties, because they're master metered, a lot of times they don't realize that there's 5 toilets that are leaking or 10 toilets that are leaking because they're looking at it from a holistic view.
Ted Owens works for Restored Resources, one of JEA's business partners in the multifamily program. He says he has 6 more complexes lined up for retrofits. And he says the complexes take the money saved on their water bill and reinvest it in the complexes themselves. Best of all, Owens says this program is getting attention nationwide.
All of these customers in Jacksonville own multiple properties across the United States. So JEA is allowing us to find a new customer and show them how they can save water. And then that ripples across the United States. They do projects in Utah, they do projects in Texas, they do more projects in Florida because we've shown them what the savings can be without a lot of risk to them. And that's extremely important.
JEA is honoring its female employees who work in trade positions as part of Women's History Month. Trade jobs require advanced skills and training, but not a college degree. JEA hopes to expand this talent pipeline for women in the future.
I think most women adapt to change better than men, and I think we've got a lot of growth that we need to undertake, and I think women helping us, leading the way, will allow us to meet that demand.
Janelle Thomas Hatch is a power plant operator and electrician. She says after many years working in a man's field, this recognition feels great.
The more that we recognize women that do traditional men jobs, the more other females will look more to those types of jobs and be like, that's something that I can do too.
Donna Deegan, Jacksonville's first female mayor, read a proclamation honoring women and their achievements during Women's History Month. Her message to young women, don't be timid when it comes to breaking down barriers.
So my message to women is always push your boundaries. Make sure that you're doing things that make you borderline uncomfortable or downright uncomfortable, because that's how you're pushing into your power. And I think sometimes women are more timid about doing that than men are. Don't be.
Call the meeting to order. I'll just make a quick comment that we are blessed to have women in the roles they have today, and we're blessed to have the women on our board and the women working at JEA. So I just want to say thank you for you guys. You make us better. Thank you. With that, let's spend a time of reflection. Now let's have an adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Values moment, Jennifer Connell, who's virtual today.
I think you might be muted, Jennifer. Can we unmute her, or does she need to unmute herself? All right. She's doing great.
Huh?
She's doing great. I think maybe we
Come back.
can come back, or
Yeah, let's come back once we've got
Thank
that
you.
worked out. Comments from the public? John Nooney?
Hello, I am John Philanthropic Resiliency Uni. Ocho tres, cinco seis, Bascom. B as in Bill. ASCOM as in meter. JEA meter bills going up. Okay, I got some of you were laughing. Okay, but anyway, I just want to this is my fourth time before the JEA board. And I'm here, I need a sponsor. And, I want this to be made part of the permanent record. But to give you an idea, our place, it's 2.5 acres, category 1 wetlands next to a FEMA house. We hit every box you can imagine. But almost a year ago, I went before the Northeast Florida Regional Council. And, here it is, it's April. So we're almost a year later. And let me just say, last night I attended the Jacksonville Environmental Protection Board Water Committee, water quality, got absolutely crushed there. Now, resiliency, I'm in this thing. I participated in 4 subcommittees. Downtown, neighborhoods, resiliency, and parks. Now, as far as access to the waterways in Duval County, it's the worst I've ever seen it. And, let me just say too, I'm wearing my Deanne Criswell shirt. Now, she's the head of FEMA in Washington. I invite anybody to come down here and I'll show them how we're getting crushed. So anyway, you look at this, Resilient Jacksonville, you open it up. Here's the mayor, here's Ann Coglianese. Never even had an email response back. Executive summary, table of contents, and then here we are, Jacksonville today. Not tomorrow, not yesterday, today. So I went to the DIA board meeting, 6 days ago. And after that meeting, I launched my kayak from River City Brewing, went over to McCoy's Creek, went underneath the Times Union, caught 2 reds, just, floating, a dead shrimp on a circle hook. I want to be one of the biggest cheerleaders for this city, but unless you provide public access, we're getting crushed. So I'm here for JEA because we have 2 septic tanks. So immediately you remove 2 septic tanks, you have public access to next to a FEMA house. And that's a whole separate issue. So anyway, this is almost a year later. I don't know how much more embarrassing it can be, but I'll be going, going to the JTA, there is so much money. The River Accord, I participated in that thing the last time. You have over $40 million, just for public access, which is a component of the JEA requirement. So anyway, this is the 4th time I've been here. And you know what? No one's called me back. No one. I'm serious. So, I don't know where to go from this, but help. Because, we want to say to the world, visit Jacksonville. Thank you for listening.
John, thank you. Do we have any virtual comments?
We do not at this time.
Okay. This point time, we're gonna move on the values moment. We're having a hard time getting Jennifer on board, but with this time, I'll hand it to Councilman Bolin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity. Just a couple of thoughts. And items number one, I wanted to affirm that Mr. Baker will be on the consent agenda tonight for a reappointment to serve on this board. I gladly served on the Rules Committee and offered to co-sponsor his appointment. I know what a great service he's been for this board, and his experience and his thoughtfulness and thinking about the ratepayer and everything that he talks about. I do appreciate that and look forward to the opportunity. Secondly, given what's on the agenda this afternoon or this morning, and the noise we've been hearing around it and surrounding JEA which is important. Yet I do want to reflect a little bit on the concerns you raised with respect to O&M. When we rewrote Article 21, the intent was to, and clearly, I think in many respects, increase the accountability and responsibility of the board in the process. And so I just wanted to follow up and reaffirm your interest and effort to focus on O&M, and just with a question in that context, where are we in that process?
Let me, if I can, Councilman, if you can let me talk through that in our chairman's report, but I will say quickly that I've asked to bring on Vicki Cavey, who's worked with 5 of the 6 CEOs of JEA in the past many years. The one she did not work with is the one that left in a tough situation, and she came back with Paul to work with Paul in the intermediary, and she worked with Jay. We've got some, as I've said to you, we have a very, very strong balance sheet. We have a very strong JEA. We've come a long ways, but the areas that, and I will speak to this, but we're going to spend $4 billion in the next 4 years. So I think Vicki can help us in that process, number one. Number two, O&M needs to be looked at and reorg. As you know, with the charter, it's not under our ability to talk to or work with the CEO on that effort. But we definitely feel that reorg needs to look at. So I think Vicki and Jay can work together on looking at that, number one. Number two, the comments I've heard from city council people and the comments I've heard from the community strongly is, Jacksonville is one of the greatest cities in the world, and anybody that works in a leadership position at JEA should live in the service area. And we are going to get a report back from Vicki and Jay on that, but I think we're doing everything we can, and I think we are committed to be the best. Jay always says we're not for sale, and he and I both agree we're not for sale, and we want to be the best municipal utility in the country.
Well, I have, as liaison, as you might imagine, like you, I've heard from a lot of constituents and just general concerns about the situation. And as we were ending into the budgeting year coming up, I'm sure JEA is already working on putting together its presentation to the council or to the mayor's office first. So I think it's just timely for us to address this head on, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that. Thank you, sir.
Councilman, thank you for your efforts and your comments. and more importantly, your concern for our community. With that, I'll hand it to Jay Stowe.
So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to give a report. Before I get into the more official part of the report, though, it is apparently too heavy for me to lift and pass over here, but today is a transition of sorts, and Bobby Stein is going to step down as chair through our normal course of action. But this is your second time around on the board, and we appreciate the service that you've given all of that, and especially the last 2 years as you've served as the chair of this organization and helped lead us into what I think does get us towards being the best utility in the nation. So we want to thank you for your service. And I think I'm supposed to stand up and pass this to you, but I don't want us to drop it. But there's a clock that is a meter from the 1920s as a commemoration of your service. And we want
my age or my...
Well, we say for your service. You can interpret it however you would like. So anyway, thank you very much for the service that you provided to this organization. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
I want to just pile on. Bobby, there's nobody on this board that works harder than you. And we are grateful for your leadership. We're grateful for the fact that you care so much about Jacksonville. And you've done a magnificent job for the last 2 years. And the 2 years before that, you helped me immensely. And I'm so grateful for that. So thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments, both of y'all. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Bobby.
Mr. Chair, can I comment?
Yeah, he said yes.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I got feedback or whatever, but to beat a dead horse, which is perfectly appropriate right now. Yeah, Bobby, just thanks for your leadership as a chair again for 2 years, and also before that. But it's a pleasure working with you. No one works harder for this community than you do, and you set the standard for, I think, for all us board members, and we're proud to call you a colleague. But also you're a great mentor and a great example. So just thank you for all you've done for me personally and also for the community and the board. It's been a real pleasure working with you. Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you.
You want us to keep talking about you?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. And thank you all for being here and being part of this community. You know, last month we started our meeting, and it was just as the trial was beginning. And over the last few weeks, several, both current and former employees, former board members, a lot of folks had kind of testified to their experiences, and many of the employees have experienced and endured hard memories. And I want to recognize that that is true, but also recognize that we have a lot of important work to do, and that we need to keep on moving forward because we provide foundational services to this community every single day. And so I appreciate the work that the employees do every day, have done every day, even during hard times. They are still focused on doing the right thing for the community and serving our community the best that we can. You saw this morning in the beginning, we had 2 videos. One was about the conservation efforts that we have. This is Florida. April is Florida Water Conservation Month. And we wanted to show that video as a sign of some of the things that we are doing that both helps our operations by saving water in conservation, which our water integrated resource plan suggested was the least expensive way for us to move forward. So operationally, it's good. And then for the community, it's positive, and for individual homeowners, it's positive. So I'm glad that we were able to do that. And then we were able to celebrate Women's History Month with Mayor Deegan. And I realized that the quote that I put down was the exact same thing she already said in the video. So I just want to say that I appreciate the women in trades that helped put on that, and for Mayor Deegan and her team to be here. The room, maybe the fullest fullest, the most full that I'd seen it in this room was, it was inspirational to see all of that. So on today's meeting, we have, I'm going to cover just a couple of things on the consent agenda. I think that you'll be able to tell that I didn't write this part, but included in the consent agenda are substantially completed drafts of JEA's annual disclosure reports for 2023, as well as red line drafts to what was provided to the board last month. These drafts were prepared in accordance with JEA's disclosure policies and procedures. We believe the drafts to contain all relevant disclosures and information required to comply with JEA's continuing disclosure obligations. With your approval of the consent agenda, we will work quickly to file those reports with the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board, and then that will make them publicly available for investors. Also on the consent agenda today is a request to approve a change in name for the work that Florida Renewal Partners is doing to add solar to some property that we own. They have affiliate entities under common ownership, and so they're changing the names for each one of these sites. Doesn't change any of the rest of the contract. So that's why that's on the consent agenda. We also have, as part of the ongoing discussion around our enterprise planning, today you'll hear a presentation on fuel and purchase power. We want to update you on how we forecast fuel and what the fuel prices look like over the next several years, and a little bit about what we do to mitigate in an effort to stabilize and reduce fuel costs. This is really the next step in the enterprise planning effort that we started at the beginning of this fiscal year. You've heard about the plan, you've seen the long-term financial forecast, the long-term resource plan, and now this is the fuel and purchase power plan. In the next few months, we'll discuss long-term technology plan and a workforce plan, and each of these items will help inform us what we bring to you in May and June to review our 3-year business plan, and then to bring the annual budget to the City Council for approval. Also in today's meeting is a discussion about the natural gas combined cycle plant that we are considering as part of the enterprise planning process. Integrated resource planning, we looked at all of our long-term resource needs, and today we're going to give you an update on the steps we've taken and will continue to take to determine the needs for an additional natural gas combined cycle plant. We plan to come back to the board in May to discuss electric resiliency as well as transmission study. And we plan to come back a lot of times for this particular project on this combined cycle. Today's presentation will specifically detail the process we are using to determine if we build a new facility at our Greenland Energy Center or if we partner with someone else to solve our need for new generation. All of this is in order to meet the goals that you set in our electric integrated resource plan. Next is a supply chain update. And on the supply chain update, we've talked about this for a year or two, and we're in better shape on our smaller residential sized transformers, but we have continued bad news and troubles on our larger 3-phase commercial industrial transformers. We're going to pull up a picture on the screen that's going to show a 2500 kVA transformer that was hit by a truck yesterday. This happened up at UF Health, and it caused an extended outage. And the reason I bring that to you is that we have these transformers in stock in our emergency stock that we sometimes refer to or think about as hurricane stock in order to be ready for hurricanes. We have some transformers in stock, but whenever something like this happens, it is safety stock, emergency stock for whatever might occur. When we pull one out of inventory to fix this problem, then we will have to replace that in inventory, and it could cause another delay in serving customers that need this size transformer. I just bring it to your attention because we talk about the safety stock a lot, but we have emergencies every day, not just during hurricanes. And it's critical that we keep people that have power and have electricity in service because we have that obligation to serve. Ray will give you more details about some of the impact that we have with our commercial developers and development. But this is the reason sometimes you will ask us, what do we have in stock? And we'll say there's 3 or 4 or 5, but it's because we have to have a certain amount based on the history of how many times they might be impacted. We also have today on our agenda electric rates that we're asking you to approve as part of the long-term rate restructuring plans. We have talked to you or the Finance and Operations Committee several times. In September, we reviewed revenue requirements and the need to adjust rates to achieve the target revenue. In November, we reviewed the electric rate study. In January meeting, you called for a rate hearing that we held in February. And then today we're asking for action. We do this so that it is transparent and open and that the community knows that it's coming. And as we've talked about in our long range plans, there will be future rate increases that will come to, and we'll keep on doing everything we can to manage those and keep them as low as possible. Remind you that, and I think there'll probably be a slide or discussion about this during the meeting, but we remain the lowest combined water, sewer, and electric bill for an average customer when compared to other Florida metropolitan areas. And I think that's a sign of some of the controls that we have in place to keep our costs down and under control. Sheila will talk today a bit about the historic East Side Restore and Repair project that Vice Chair Lanahan really pushed and began us meeting with staff and members of the community to try to partner with to work to improve lives and build community. I think it's a good story for us where we review what we've done in this pilot program, but the bigger and more exciting story is, and I won't take all of I'll let Sheila tell about but there's a grant that we got, which is really positive for us as we keep on expanding this pilot program to serve this community. And then there is a more complicated topic of capital delivery methods and contract ratifications that we have reviewed with the Finance Audit Governance Committee back in February. We brought 5 projects that exceeded my delegation of authority that were underway. The projects began in 2019, 2020, but have had several adjustments along the way. We provided the committee with background information on each project, and the committee asked us to share more information. And at the request of the board, we held a workshop with Mr. Morales and Mr. Baker on March 7th to get into a more in-depth discussion about the methods, and we reviewed each project. So we come back today with additional information on the contracts as well as the award history. We'll ask the board to ratify or approve these contracts, and then we'll come back to the board in May with process improvements to ensure we're in alignment with the delegation of authority, as well as asking the board to approve other projects that are underway. There's 2 additional items that I think we hit on a little bit earlier, but we'll hear from General DeSalvo about the ITN that we've sent out last week to look for a consultant to help us look at our overall operations, specifically operation and maintenance cost and capital cost. And we look forward to working with this consultant that will help us validate our direction and make adjustments where we need to. And then finally, Chair Stein mentioned this earlier, but we'll introduce Vicki Cavey, who started this week as a board advisor to help be sure we're on the right track and the board is receiving timely information to make the best decisions possible. So we've already shared with Vicki a lot of information to help her understand where we've been over the last few years and get up to speed about what's going on around here. Since she been here a few years ago. But I know I speak for the whole leadership team when I say that they are looking forward to her helping us be sure that you are getting what you need and understand what is happening. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions if you have any, but thank you very much for the opportunity to be here.
Any questions? With that, we'll move to JEA performance update. Julie?
Good morning. I'll be sharing the results of our corporate performance with you all via our corporate scorecard, and our update today includes data through the end of February. The scorecard reflects the strong performance that we had so far this year. Our most positive results for February come from our safety metric and our water and wastewater reliability metrics. In terms of safety, we had 0 recordable incidents in the month of February. And additionally, we had no major events last month that affected grid water pressure. And we also had 0 sanitary sewer overflow events affecting the waters of the state in the month of February. Year to date, these metrics are well within range of the first quartile result. Additionally, last month, we received the results of our first Glint Employee Engagement Survey for 24. The results returned an overall engagement score of 83, which is a 3-point increase from the last survey, which was fielded in August. We're pleased to see that our employees continue to report high scores when asked about their experience at JEA, placing us in the first quartile of companies conducting the survey. And as we progress into the fiscal year, we will be watching our spend metrics closely. As you can see, we are performing to budget at a variance of negative 6.8%, which is primarily being driven by lower than budgeted capital spend at this point in the year. Our O&M spend continues to trend over budget, and fuel and expense projections are now down to $420 million after a $6 million month-over-month decrease. And that concludes my update, but I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Julie, thank you. For those who have not worked with Julie, she is talking about women and excellence of women. She has done an amazing job for JEA.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you for the update, but also thanks for what you do every day.
Thank you.
With that, look for the board to do a consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Fuel and Purchase Power Plan by Ted Phillips.
Good morning, Chair Stein and board members. So today, Nancy's going to be doing the hard work on this presentation, but I'm going to introduce it. And as Jay had mentioned in his report, the Fuel and Purchase Power Plan is part of our integrated resource, or not an integrated resource, but our overall planning method that we installed the first of this fiscal year. And so with no further ado, I'll turn it over to Nancy, and hopefully she'll be able to speak better than I have been able to this morning. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Ted. Good morning. Fuel and purchase power are critical for reliable generation, electric generation, to supply JEA's customers in Jacksonville and the surrounding areas. The fuels team, in conjunction with bulk power operations, energy production, and the Energy Authority, or TEA, work closely together to ensure we optimize fuel and power supply for continued low costs to our customers. Energy markets can be volatile at times, though, and we strive to reduce the risk of higher costs. Today, I will touch on some key factors from our fuel and purchase power process and how we are integrating it into a longer look to coincide with enterprise planning. On this current screen, you have heard from Julie in previous board meetings discuss enterprise planning and the strategic plans for long-range finances and long-range resources. One part of this enterprise process is the key supporting plan for fuel and purchase power, which is what I will address today. To start, JEA utilizes a variety of fuels to generate its electricity and economically dispatches which units to operate based on the cost of fuel and other important factors. Currently, natural gas is the main fuel used for JEA power generation at roughly 60%. Purchase power totals 20%, renewables and nuclear or clean energy is at 14%, with the remainder being made up by coal and petroleum coke. Looking forward to 2030, the picture changes with the addition of more solar energy for a total of 1,275 megawatts, the retirement of Northside Unit 3, and the addition of a potential combined cycle as identified in our integrated resource plan. The natural gas usage is estimated to decrease to roughly 54%, with clean energy increasing to JEA's corporate goal of 35%. Looking at natural gas in the graph on the right, the solid red line shows NYMEX prices of gas, and typically we look 4 to 5 years out. But to match the strategy with enterprise planning, we are adjusting our outlook to 10 years. In the near term, I would like to point out that the March gas contract settled at a low of $1.62 per MMBTU. That's the lowest March NYMEX settle price in 29 years. This cost is at a low we have not seen since the height of COVID in July of 2020. The other colored lines show previous prices from February and early March, and the orange dotted line is where we are financially hedged with natural gas, and more to come on this. The low prices we have today are significantly less than the $9 per MMBTU we saw in August of 2022. After Russia invaded Ukraine, gas supply from Russia to Europe was reduced, and the U.S. continued to ship liquefied natural gas, or LNG, to Europe to help with its shortfall. Gas in Europe at that time ran from $40 to $60 per MMBTU. In addition, storage of natural gas in the U.S. was below its 5-year average, and the combination of these factors drove up the price of gas. Today's decrease in price has been driven by warmer than expected winter weather, which has lowered the demand for natural gas both in heating and in electric generation. More natural gas has remained in storage, with levels currently 31% higher than the 5-year average, as shown in the graph in the upper left. Prices are expected to remain low over the next few months, with Europe's demand for U.S. LNG declining due to their own above normal temperatures and industrial slowdown. The prices then look to increase as next winter sets in. Weather is playing an increasing role in natural gas price discovery. Future natural gas prices will also be affected by increased LNG exports, U.S. gas production, coal unit shutdowns, power needs by artificial intelligence, and much more. Even with the mild winter we had, here is a prime example of weather impacting the natural gas market and when prices can become volatile, as they did over the Martin Luther King Jr. weekend in January. Winter Storm Jerry caused widespread elevated prices over the 4-day trading period from $12 to $30 per MMBTU on day-ahead prices, and the bid-ask spread ranged from $5 to $100. Prices were less than $4 just the week before. Although some electric generation switched from natural gas to coal, since coal was less costly during this time, and some LNG was turned off, it was not enough to offset the price increase. JEA's actual cost over this weekend was $6.15 per MMBTU, with details on this on the next slide. Looking to the future, on peak days, greater demand for natural gas and less fuel switching capability could lead to increased volatility and larger price swings. JEA receives its natural gas through 2 major interstate pipelines, the Florida Gas Transmission Pipeline, or FGT, and the Elba Pipeline on the Southern Natural Gas Pipeline System. During Winter Storm Jerry, the FGT pipeline had scheduling restrictions, which, as shown on the green line, put pressure on the Transco Zone 5 Elba pricing, which spiked higher in costs than running JEA's Northside Unit 3 on residual fuel oil. Bulk Power Operations and TEA optimized fuel deliveries and utilized an opportunity to schedule gas to the FGT West leg, which flows to Tampa and was less constrained, and we credited natural gas in Jacksonville. This allowed JEA to burn cheaper FGT gas and minimize the use of residual oil and Elba gas, with an approximate savings of $2.2 million. Additional savings included base loading over 125,000 MMBTUs per day of natural gas for January at lower prices, utilizing our diverse fuel supply by operating Northside Unit 1 with lower cost petroleum coke and coal, and burning residual oil and diesel instead of expensive natural gas. Our robust hedging program is a 60-month or 5-year plan where we meet minimum hedging requirements in the blue circles and opportunistic levels in the yellow diamonds based upon projected volumes of natural gas needed to generate power. JEA's Energy Market Risk Management Policy, with the latest update approved by the board in January, allows financial hedging as one means to minimize fuel price risk and market volatility. Our hedging team, made up of fuels, bulk power operations, finance, and TEA meets quarterly and more often as needed to provide not only hedging recommendations, but power purchases and any other fuel strategies to reduce price risks. The gray shaded area shows where we have secured natural gas hedges. This consistent and programmatic strategy helps reduce the cost of gas to JEA and to its customers, and our current mark-to-market is $13 million in JEA's favor. As we work to increase our outlook to 10 years to coincide with enterprise planning, extending our hedge program out further than 5 years may prove to be difficult, as there's not much liquidity that far out with limited counterparties. Other opportunities and mechanisms, though, may allow us to develop a means to lock in prices as we move to a longer-term plan. In addition to the fuels team, running its forecast model, TEA also provides an in-depth analysis on JEA's natural gas position. This assessment for both fiscal year 2024 and 2025 shows what our price risk would be for the monthly fuel rate in the graphs on the left if we had not executed any natural gas hedges. See the gray shaded areas for the range of price exposure. The graphs on the right show the reduction in the risk, also in gray, with the hedges we have in place. The reduction in this risk is significant and helps maintain a more stable fuel rate for our customers. Turning to solid fuel, petroleum coke, or pet coke for short, coal, natural gas, and biomass are burned at our north side units 1 and 2. The graph on the right shows solid fuel pricing, with the red line being the price of Colombian coal, our current supply source. And as you can see, the price has decreased significantly from September of 2022 and is currently at its lowest level in the last 2 years. At its high point, during the midst of mine blockages from employee strikes in Colombia and from European countries searching for supply due to the Russian sanctions from the Russia-Ukraine conflict, prices were at $16 per MMBTU, or about $340 a ton. Prices are now less than $5 per MMBTU, or $110 per ton, and this graph depicts prices estimates out further in time for consistency with enterprise planning. Prices have dropped recently with slowing economic growth combined with low natural gas prices, decreasing the demand for coal, particularly in Europe. China is still a major buyer, with imports increasing over 50% from last year, as they are responsible for 96% of all new coal plants constructed in 2023. Although the coal market was just discussed, only a small percentage of coal was consumed with the latest fuel blend when each of our units were online. Pet coke was the primary fuel and historically is lower in cost than coal. Pet coke can follow the coal market and also be influenced by its own, so it's important to track both. After hitting a 3-year low recently in the light blue line, the price of pet coke experienced a small bounce in price, mainly due to lower freight rates and extended maintenance outages at a few Gulf Coast refineries. Venezuelan supply helps support the lower prices, as pet coke from this country has also been hitting the market since the U.S. softened sanctions last October, but the U.S. government will not renew the sanction relief when it expires in April. Biomass, a renewable fuel, has also been burned at Northside Units 1 and 2, and its cost is shown in the dark blue line. Recent testing at Northside 2 was completed with a collaborative effort by Northside Operations, Environmental, Engineering, Project Management, and Fuels to increase biomass usage from 200 tons per day to 800 when the unit is back online. We look forward to testing Northside 1 this summer and increasing the consumption of this renewable fuel. The fuels team runs its forecast model monthly and more often as needed, with inputs from bulk power operations and TEA. We historically ran it out for 5 years, but we are in the process of extending our model out to 10 years to support enterprise planning. With that, our budget for this fiscal year was $446 million, and as of March was projected to be lower at $420 million. The recent month-over-month decrease is due to lower natural gas prices, as well as a warm winter, which did not require using higher priced fuels to generate electricity. With the extension out to 10 years, you can see the estimated budget, which assumes no major changes in energy markets, which we all know are subject to weather, geopolitical, supply and demand, and other influences. Based on these fuel and purchase power expenses, revenue, and other adjustments, the rates department calculated the fuel rate for April to be $31.24 per megawatt hour. Through September, the fuel rate is projected to be relatively stable at under $37. Looking at over 10 years, rates has provided future estimated cost, as shown in the green line, to be under $40 per megawatt hour, using the current expense forecast, and again, borrowing any substantial shift in costs in the energy markets. In summary, JEA's usage of the different types of fuels it currently has will change with the addition of more solar capacity, the retirement of Northside 3, and the potential addition of a new combined cycle unit. Fuel rates are somewhat stable despite the Russia-Ukraine war and the unrest in the Middle East, and our fuel rates for our customers look to be consistent. To support enterprise planning, the fuel and purchase power process will shift to a longer-term analysis. And in efforts to keep the fuel costs down, JEA will continue to reduce price volatility with its hedging program, with advanced procurement of fuels, and also use extensive efforts to reduce electric generating costs and subsequently customer bills. And thank you for that.
Any questions? I mean, one question I'd ask Ted and Nancy is, with the growth of natural gas in the country and the growth of the state of Florida, is FGT and the pipelines capable of, have y'all looked at the capacity for the future of that growth, and are there more pipelines or increased capacity in these pipelines in the future?
Yes, we've been in contact with both FGT and SNG as part of the IRP process in case we need additional capacity for the new combined cycle. The FGT pipeline is currently at capacity, so if we need more gas, an expansion would be required. SNG also is working on a potential expansion as we speak. So there's an opportunity there, but the timing between us and their expansion project may not mesh together.
Is there any movement on the pipeline coming down from Pennsylvania? The Marcellus, it was caught up in.
Oh, the Mountain
Valley.
Mountain Valley. I do not believe that's in service as of yet.
No, it's not in service, but is there any thoughts on when that could be turned on?
So we've got a couple of people from the Energy Authority that might be able to help us answer that. Mark, you want to maybe go to the microphone to give you time to think about the answer while you walk over there?
My name is Mark Anderson. I'm with the Energy Authority, Account Director for the Southeast. Mountain Valley Pipeline should be online sometime this summer. That's the expectation. If everything goes the way it's expected from here on out, it's this summer.
Yeah. I think a risk that we all should be thinking about is, pipeline capacity, number one. Number two is transmission. Those two things, we think about we think about building capacity, but to move that capacity is going to be a big issue, I think, in the future. So I think we should think strongly about.
You're talking about electric transmission?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and next board meeting, we'll have an update on transmission, a transmission study that we've completed to help us understand that risk a little bit, both internal to our system and external.
To me, I feel that a lot of utilities are building out capacity, but not thinking through, and this includes solar, wind, everything. Transmission is a problem, and through the natural gas, which I think if you look at the reduction in coal, that a lot of that's going to be taken up by natural gas. So thinking through that smartly, I think it's worth some time. Ted, thank you. And next up is Ray.
Real quick one. I want to say one more thing, Nancy. Thank you. This is was a fast presentation on a complicated subject, and Nancy and her team, bulk power team, all the different groups within the organization do a fantastic job. This is $440 million of our budget that requires a lot of work from a lot of different teams to be able to be sure we're there. And then the support of the Energy Authority allows us to do that. One of the things that I hope you noticed is there's a little bit of a back and forth because we're looking at long range plans, but Nancy and her team and the bulk op, they have to figure out what to do day ahead, hour ahead, and make sure that we have enough every single day. So I don't want to gloss over the complicated nature of this, but I want to say thank you for you and your team and the rest of the teams that helped this.
It really is complicated, and I think we benefited from y'all's very strong hedging program, and I just would challenge us that that's also a risk. I mean, that is, if we don't get the kind of deals we've had in the market in the past, then there's going to be a meaningful impact as those hedges start rolling off. So I know you look at that all the time.
Yes, we do.
And I think it's candidly one of the things I would say is our strong suit. Y'all have done a great job with that, but if we had not, and we can't continue going forward, with the way we've got the fuel adjustment clause, it would go right back to the ratepayer if those hedges prove to be hard to get in the future. So that's a big risk.
Yeah, Marty, that's a great point, and I'll reiterate what Jay has said. Nancy, it's we're moving pet coke, we're moving coal from Colombia. I mean, there's a lot of risks, supply chain risks that we're dealing with. Natural gas is going to be more complicated. So I want to thank you and your team. Number one. Number two, I would continue looking at these hedges. I think protecting the upside, because this is a commodity that can get out of hand and it can change the cost of our fuel.
It's not that dissimilar to the limestone issue we had last year, which was coming from Mexico, I believe. And there was some, right. I mean, that whole, all those different little pieces and parts of the supply chain that can.
Well, pet coke, what was pet coke like 5 years ago? Base price. It was much higher than what it is today.
Right, exactly.
It is. I don't normally do this, but can you go back to the slide that has the opportunistic? There's a bar chart.
Got dots and triangles.
I don't know which way to go, but
Going back.
Keep going.
Keep on going.
I think this is to touch on what your question is. That's the reason that we won't let things just roll off. It is something we're looking at regularly and have some expectation that it rolls, but it drops down so that 5 years out, we can only hedge 15 or 20% in order to help offset that. But it's absolutely something we have to be aware of, because we just showed you charts where it went up to $15 or $20 when it's only $1.20 now. So it is absolutely one of our concerns. And this is one of the ways that we help manage that. So thank you for bringing that. Both of those are big issues of risk for us.
But these are low prices that we won't see.
They won't stick around.
Yeah. So,
Bobby.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
You made a reference to transmission of electricity. I think transmission of gas is something that we really got to focus on, and also the inventories that we have of gas. I've got a piece of property in Columbia County that Florida Gas runs a pipeline through, and with one stick of dynamite, I could shut off the flow of gas to Florida for weeks, if not months. And so we need to be cognizant that there are bad guys everywhere, and that if we're going to really rely on gas, we've got to have sufficient inventory to get us through a bump in the road.
I absolutely agree, John. I think that's what I was saying. The transmission of gas is going to be important, number one. Number two, you know, and I'm sure Jay's going to bring this forward, is the transmission of electricity is 25% of the cost of electricity today, and it's going to get more expensive. So I think both of them, not only when you talk about your property, but permitting is going to be a big issue as the state grows, getting the capacity in these pipelines. We might be building everybody else in Florida. Combined cycle is, I think, 35% more efficient than the old gas turbines. And so I think a lot of people are going to go to combined cycle. And so I absolutely agree. So, I mean, Jay, team, it's not just building these combined cycle, it's how do we get it, or how do we build solar, how do we make sure we get it? And again, you mentioned a point that people forget is safety. In today's world, we talk about cyber, but as you said, somebody want to destroy the economic system is
or a freak accident like happened in Baltimore this morning.
What's that?
Or an accident like happened in Baltimore this morning.
Yeah.
That would, you know, it's going to be decades. It could be a decade before they replace that bridge, and you know, accidents could happen to the unforeseen.
Great point, guys. Anything else? Dr. Payson, Kwanzaa. So with that, but again, Jay, to reiterate your point is, Nancy, thank you for you and your team. I mean, this is complicated, and a big piece of that is nuclear fuel that we have very little say so, but I do think we're getting some credits that we didn't think we were possible, which are, you know, important. Every bit is important. So thank you for all the effort. And again, another woman is showing leadership. So thank you. Ray, we continue with these women. Thank God for them.
All the backup speakers happen to be men, but just saying. So good morning, Chair Stein. Good morning, Board. Some very astute observations concerning transmission and gas. I'm going to touch upon some of that in this presentation. And the purpose of the presentation is to provide an update on our efforts for securing an additional power source in order to meet our future demands as we retire less efficient generation. And we're going to touch upon that as well. In this case, it's a natural gas combined cycle unit. And so as you can see from the title slide, because this is such an important matter with many facets to it, we have four additional speakers who are going to touch upon different topics. I'm going to provide a little bit of background information on how we got to this point. And then I'm going to turn it over to Pedro Melendez. He's our VP of Planning and Engineering. And also Brad Kushner. He's our external utility consultant who helped and worked on the electric integrated resource plan. They are going to go over the state regulations for licensing large power plants, the process that this entails, as well as identify the significant milestones. I think an important note here is to mention that whether JEA self-builds a unit, as we did in 2011, or someone else builds a unit, the same laws govern and the same process will need to be followed. Finally, Ricky Erickson, our VP of Electric Systems, is going to provide an overview of important operational considerations, including the transportation of gas. So, project background. You can go to the next slide. As a reminder, we contracted with Black & Veatch at the end of 2021 to perform the electric integrated resource plan. We established an IRP working group, conducted several meetings, did extensive data analysis, scenario development, and multiple model runs. The IRP was completed in May of last year, and it culminated in a public meeting held at WJCT Studios. The modeling results identified 1,275 megawatts of solar, almost 600 megawatts of a higher efficiency gas resource, and decommissioning one of our older, less efficient generating units, and in this case, Northside Unit 3. All these efforts support the IRP goals of 35% clean energy and reducing our CO2 emissions by 80% by 2030. We also committed to completing another IRP within the next 3 to 4 years, or specifically by 2026. So just putting in context a little bit of the background, and now I'm going to turn it over to Pedro and Brad, and they're going to start with laws that govern.
Thanks, Roy, and also the board for the opportunity of presenting and talking about this right today. Brad Wisner, to my right, has an extensive experience in determination and e-filings and has testified in numerous Board of Public Service Commission proceedings, including 4 combined cycles projects. One happened to be the Greenland, the last time we were at Greenland, Stanton Energy in Orlando, Treasure Coast Energy Center, Unit 1, and King Island Unit 4 for the FMPA. I'm going to turn it over to Brad to go over some of the regulatory framework that covers these projects.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Board. Ray. As Ray alluded to, and as Pedro mentioned, Black & Veatch has been involved with developing a recent integrated resource plan dating back to 2021 for JEA. I've been part of the Black & Veatch team as the IRP consultant. Specific to that resource plan, we've heard the references to the combined cycle unit. So as a combined cycle unit, which consists of a combustion turbine portion, equipment to recover the waste heat and push that through to a steam turbine, the combined cycle resource falls under the Power Plant Siting Act. In this instance, we have nominally a 600 megawatt combined cycle unit with more than 75 megawatts of steam capacity. So the process that we go through with the Public Service Commission is very well defined. It's typically referred to as the Power Plant Siting Act, and it consists of an environmental component as well as a determination of need with the Public Service Commission. The Siting Act provides for one license that governs the approval to construct and operate the proposed generating unit. In the instance of moving forward with the determination of need filing, the process would be to file your petition for determination of need with the Florida Public Service Commission. There are several factors that need to be addressed in that determination of need, including the need for the resource. Basically, what does JEA's customers require with growing demands for electrical energy? What's the most cost-effective solution to providing reliable service? As part of the process, we'll have to demonstrate to Mr. Chair's comments that there's a reliable supply, adequate supply of natural gas to fuel the resource. Also, we'll have to demonstrate that the JEA has used and continues to utilize renewable energy resources and conservation and demand-side management resources to the extent reasonably appropriate, kind of balancing the need for this gas resource with other types of resources that might be available. As an example of JEA's efforts on the renewable side, Ray had alluded to procuring up to approximately 1,275 megawatts of new solar. That would be in addition to this combined cycle that we're discussing. And that combined cycle is going to help facilitate the integration of that solar to reliably serve JEA's customers. Specific to conservation and demand-side management, there's actually a process every 5 years that JEA is part of called the Florida Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act, or FECA filing. That filing petition goes in actually Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, and will help to demonstrate the cost-effective potential of conservation and demand-side management. So in parallel to evaluating this combined cycle, JEA is actively looking at renewable and conservation alternatives that the combined cycle would be compared against in determining the need with the Public Service Commission. I was going to turn it back over to Pedro, but if there's any questions I can help address, I'd be happy to do so.
Anybody have any questions? I have a question. You know, we're looking at hiring a consultant to look at our overall needs. What would happen if we waited till that person or group weighed in and gave their thoughts?
I'll give you a quick one, and then I think I'm gonna cover that in one of the slides when we talk about timing, and I'll address it again. It's important we understand there are some regulatory processes, and we're aiming to fulfill our renewables goal by 2030. I'll touch on that a little bit more on some of the milestones of what would it be if we shift to the right or to the left. But we'll discuss a little bit more then. Is that good, Jay?
Yeah, but we look at, looking at preparatory phase, and I'm just trying to catch up, but we've completed the combined cycle feasibility study, the alternative evaluation. Have we seen that?
Let me go over some of that right now.
No, we haven't seen that.
No, but I mean, what is their, again, have we seen it, and what is their qualifications? I mean, I know they trade electrons. Do they do this type of work in other situations?
Yeah, I think they do, but I think that Pedro's going to get into some of those in this next few slides.
Okay.
If it doesn't, we'll come back to it.
I do think it's important, as I recall, the conversation with the folks that were involved in the IRP, that we kind of committed to them that the combined cycle plant wasn't a done deal. And that doesn't feel like what we're talking about. I mean, I just feel like we went through that process. They public comment after public comment after public comment said, and we were kind of really begging you not to do this project, go forward. And I don't know that we've explored other alternatives. I understand the need, but to Bobby's question, I don't know what our alternatives are. And I want to make sure the people engaged in that process felt like we heard them.
Absolutely, and I will touch on that. I'll answer the question now. There's a market test that allows for that open conversation of what options do exist in the market. We actually conducted a preliminary evaluation I'll talk through that the Energy Authority also performed. So we're moving in that direction, and it's going to be an open process.
Yeah, I think some of the slides that are coming are gonna.
Yeah,
address that. Yep.
Yeah,
let's
keep going.
It's fine. Yeah, let me go through some of these, particularly the first slide, and then the next one is going to answer a lot of your questions. Let me cover these pieces, and my questions about what the Energy Authority has executed. They are here. Mark is here actually to be able to provide answers on that.
Okay, and as you get to the next slide, I think what we are doing is whatever the option ends up being is giving due diligence to that. And so the combined cycle, this is part of the due diligence effort. And out of this process, other alternatives could also be identified. We'll get into more specifics with these slides.
I think we are already into the first item already, so I'm going to go through that. That a study that was conducted for an existing facility that exists out there, fuel supplies, water resources, and environmental impact to physically build a facility within our footprint. The evaluation also included constructability, any system upgrades or expansions or constraints, and also a location is part of that evaluation. For my feasibility, can it be done? The market indicative pricing for potential solutions was independently conducted by the Energy Authority. The Energy Authority met with 3 outside entities to provide capacity and energy pricing to JEA for market alternatives outside of our balancing area to build similar facilities. These alternatives proved to be more expensive than the IRP recommendation and did not provide the operational attributes needed for JEA's electric system. That was conducted last year. An independent evaluator has joined our team as we prepare for a market test, which I'm going to get into a level of details to answer a lot of your questions, to further explore project alternatives. We have not explored all the alternatives, and that's the process we will go through, and I'll talk to what that's going to entail. and also the determination of need filing. In the past 15 years, Merrimack Energy is being involved in serving as an independent evaluator for utilities in the power procurement solicitations in 21 different states and 3 Canadian provinces. They are the ones that were awarded this particular services for JEA. We have said it several times. The IRP identified the need for 571 megawatts of high efficiency unit. JEA, as the utility with this need, we have the responsibility to complete a determination of need filing at the Florida PSC. And to that end is why we're providing this update today. We plan to complete a market test, which is a formal solicitation process to explore more alternatives and have a comparative self-built. In order to select, we have to look at whether a self-built option is that project or another alternative. So these associated facilities and execution plan is required to obtain a certificate of need from the PSC and also a certificate from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And that's part of the pieces that Brad was covering from a regulatory framework. While a market test is not required for a public utility, JEA believes this open process aligns with our commitment to transparency and doing the right things for our customers. So before diving to the significant activities, which is in our next slide, I'd like to share some drivers of those needs. Thank you. The why. We want to understand what is the main driver is Northside 3 is planned for decommissioning, was part of the IIP process. And extending the operational life of this unit presents significant capital costs and needed upgrades to stay in compliance with environmental regulations. This Northside 3 unit is 524 megawatts unit that does not meet the rent rate requirements to balance the system when we account for the additional solar. Balancing the rent rate is a technical term. Essentially, as the sun is still sunsetting and the lights continue on, think about when you dim the lights, well, you have to be able to keep up with that, and that's basically an illustration of what ramp rate means, right? When you dial that.
So Pedro, how many megawatts is Northside 3?
Northside 3 is 124 megawatts unit.
Okay.
That's as it is decommissioned, we are identifying a need for additional capacity. Interstate gas transportation and fuel costs will be up 60% higher than what the IRP identified with the to produce more megawatts with less gas, and it's presented by Nancy. Our long-term fuel and purchase plan accounts for these efficiencies to meet our customers' need. In addition, the newly identified unit will have significantly less CO2 emissions, reaffirming our commitment to balancing reliability, affordability, and sustainability. Let's go over the significant activities and milestones to determine the project option and approval steps.
Mr. Chairman, Pedro.
Yes.
Can you go back? These are all very generalized comments, and this is a game of numbers. Could you give the board, not now, but at a later date, the actual numbers when you say, how much we're saving, how much capital we're spending, what the returns are? What if we fixed the old power plant, Northside 3? What would the cost of that be? Just, it seems very simple the way you have it up here, and I'm sure it's very unsimple.
It is, sir. Well, we'll provide that information. Absolutely not a problem.
Including environmental impact.
And the environmental impact. We have two regulations. One is water and the other one is clean energy, and we will share some of that. Let's go over the significant activities and milestones to determine the project option. All right. To help understand the graphical view, the diamonds represents updates and decision points for the board. So yes, we will be back. That's what the diamonds represent. We will be back. The boxes and tops are aligned in time, showing when and the duration of key activities. And the green arrow illustrates when the independent evaluator will be involved through the preparation phase all the way to the PSC experts' testimony. A JEA cross-functional team has been working with experienced consultants to prepare for the market test and activities as shown. And as mentioned by Ray, this process is applicable regardless of what project option is utilized for a new steam power plant, whether it's a self-built option in which it's built by JEA or someone else builds it, or it's a partnership, or any other mechanisms to build a unit, the process is required. So we will talk about the process as it is required and provide some feedback to the team. What is a market test? It's a formal competitive solicitation seeking long-term capacity and energy resources, requesting proposals from the market. That includes quantitative and qualitative criteria to identify a project that meets needs. To appropriately evaluate these options, JEA needs to have a comparable project clearly defined, and that's why a pilot island solicitation is being conducted, so a technology and major components and equipment for JEA's projects needs are done simultaneously. So we will be simply doing the same as everybody else. That's what that box in the bottom will look like. We plan to provide an update in August in regards to this process. I'll pause so we can revisit some of the questions that you have.
Well, I mean, in my different companies, we call it Bobby proof, how the dumbest guy in the room can understand it. And we're about to spend $1 billion on this project, and we do need it. And I'm just saying, this is why I thought it made sense to bring in, you know, a consultant that work with the board to make sure we're going to make the best decision possible. And you guys are down in the depths. You've spent a lot of time, and I respect all that. But, you know, we had all the best intentions when we built Plant Vogel, and, you know, it's $1 billion plus over budget. And my question is, we slow this down just a little bit and get organized to where the board understands, or have somebody represent them that understands where we are in the process. And I don't want to underestimate the work you guys have done, but some of the questions that John talks about are things that are in my mind. And I've asked, you know, can we rework Northside 3? And, you know, the answer is yes, no, we can't. And I'm just, to me, we're spending this kind of money, and the boards, we have a fiduciary, and we can't any longer say, and this has nothing to do with the management team. This is where we are with the citizens and the communities, the service area we provide. We've got, you know, a light in a dark room on us right now. So Jay, I would say, does it make sense to slow this process down just a little bit? Get us up to date with somebody that is on the same page we are, to make sure we're making the right decisions. And I'm open for discussion here, and I want to make sure we're being smart here. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts.
Well, one of the things that I think that we can do and probably should do is maybe we should schedule a workshop to get into more of the details than what we're talking about right now. We do have the independent evaluator that is also going through this, and the way that this project update works, I think it might match up okay with the other consultant that comes in, because we're not planning on having the market test completed until January of 25. So all of these things can go in parallel to be sure that we're able, this timeline is important and tight to be able to meet the 2030 deadlines that we set.
But I'd rather be a year late. And again, I don't want to underestimate the work that's gone into it. I'm just saying, for me personally, I feel we've got a lot of pressure on us right now. And I want to make sure we're making the best information. We're about to hire somebody that will give us satisfaction that we've made. And we're spending, this thing will be $1 billion. And, you know, that's, for our community, that's a lot of money. And I just want to make sure we're smart. I'd like to get other board members' thoughts.
Yeah, I guess the question really is there an unintended consequence for slowing down? I mean, are we going to miss an application window? Are we going to, are we going to slow the project so far behind that the unintended consequences that we miss on a timing event? So, I think we do need to slow down even backwards to understanding what our other options are. Because again, I don't know that we've really done that as a board, but I don't want to mandate a slowdown without understanding the implications of doing so.
If I may, I got a couple items that I'd like to share. First one is, in order to decommission Northside by 2030, which has some regulatory constraints, there are some compliance items that we need to address in the 30-day window, which is the main driver. That's what I presented it. Takes about 4 years to build it. And we have to go through these processes. It's about 18 months plus another 24. We are actually at that prime time. It's a matter of being able to have that discussion on the regulatory compliance activities associated with Northside 3. And then the second piece is, as we add solar resources to our fleet, the existing fleet is unable to keep up with it. So we will not be ripping the benefits of being able to utilize.
I missed that last piece.
The solar, as we continue adding solar to our fleet of portfolio, how we serve our customers.
Production of solar, not our purchase of solar.
Solar in general, all of it, right? Solar all solar, whether it's the one that we build or we do power purchase to bring them in.
Yeah, so far, all of it is purchase.
It's been purchased so far.
Correct. And it's 1,200.
And it has a window, like those hedges I talked about. There's a period of time attached to those.
But long, 20, 30, yes.
Yes.
All of our projects.
Yeah, 25, 35-year PPAs, to answer your question, ma'am. As we add them to the system, are we utilizing them? Let's assume the unit that we're discussing right now does not exist in 2028, fast forward. The solar will have to come offline. Ricky, you can probably help me a little bit on that when you get a chance, but we are going to be constrained how much solar we're going to be able to have in our system around that time. So it presents that to a full situation. We have the compliance of Northside 3 and also has more intermediate resources out in the system. We are going to be constrained with our existing fleet and resource availability. Ricky?
No, just, can you explain that? I don't quite understand that. Yeah, thank you.
So, can you hear me okay?
Oh.
How about now? So, what Pedro is referring to in the IRP goals that was approved was a 35% clean energy 2030. So today, the ability to get that clean energy is kind of limited in the Southeast. That's limited to nuclear, which we're already part of, and additional solar generation in the Southeast region. To be able to produce solar, we have to have a lot of land to build the solar panels on. And one of the things that solar does for Florida is a kind of a running joke in the utility world. Florida's known as the Sunshine State, but really, when it comes to solar power, we're a partly cloudy state. You see the clouds, go over, and that cuts off solar generation. So what Pedro is referring to is our Northside 3 unit can be upgraded, it can be maintained, tubes can be replaced, things like that can be replaced to extend the life. What we cannot do is increase the ramp rate to a ability to catch up with solar. So we add one solar farm, 70 megawatts, 75 megawatts. Well, our existing fleet can probably keep up with that balance because we're called a balancing authority. We have generation and load, and we have some generation to meet our load. So NERC requirements, that's our regulatory body, requires us to balance that load and generation. So as you go home, you turn on the lights, you turn on the stove, that kind of thing. Well, we don't know that's happening. We see it happen as our load changes on our system where we can monitor it. But we have to chase that. We're always trying to catch that load. So as solar becomes part of our generation fleet, that turns it off, on and off, just like you turn off your stove, your TV, that kind of thing. It's just a bigger impact. The more you add, the bigger impact on our balance, on our, really it becomes an imbalance of your load and your generation resource. So what Pedro is referring to is the ability to balance that in a timely fashion which complies with our requirements from our NERC standard from a regulatory body. So as you add more and more and more, if we add a total of 1,200 plus megawatts of solar in 2030-ish timeframe, the existing fleet with the existing ramp rates are not going to be able to constantly balance that as it comes on and off. So that's one of the big drivers for some sort of unit to balance that generation and load. And the reason Northside 3 was kind of targeted is because there are other regulations. Somebody mentioned environmental regulations. There's a water regulation, just slang, so 316B. It has to do with water intake at Northside and the microorganisms that are in the water. So there's a 2030-ish, I don't remember the exact deadline, that we have to comply with that regulation. So units 1, units 2, and units 3, there's an issue with running all of them at full load when this regulation kicks in 2030-ish timeframe. However, if you take Northside 3 out of the picture, we comply with our existing units and our existing intakes and our existing infrastructure there. So capital improvements, capital investment is not required if Northside 3 and 1 and 2 are not running. So you take 3 out of the mix, you comply with the standards, so you can take that capital cost that we're going to have to do to keep all 3 full capability, take that capital cost and apply it to another unit. You don't have to spend that there and then spend the same amount of money on the unit. So that's some of the, I hope I answered some of your questions.
No, I mean, that is great points. All I'm saying is we're moving on a line to build a combined cycle plant at Greenland, 560 megawatts at Greenland. I understand you need combined capacity with solar and you need peak power. I understand all that. The question is, and this is, I'm feeling like I'm about to have heart surgery and I can't get a second opinion. That's, you know, and that's what I just want to know is there other alternatives that we're not thinking about that we're smart? And that's, I think, and Kwanzaa and Dr. Faison, I don't know if y'all have any thoughts or comments, but that's where my mind is not to any way, you know, I respect all the work that you guys have done. I really do. And I don't want to impede on that, but I also want to make sure before we go too far down, if we do hire this consultant to represent the board, because we can do a workshop, Jay, and we're still working on information.
This is,
yeah,
I think what we're trying to say is the market test is that second opinion. That's exactly what this is it will, between now and January, it provides the information that helps us know if there is a better alternative out there. And that's not us creating that market. That is an RFP that's gone out to the market so that other providers have the opportunity to say that they can accomplish the goals.
The only difference, Jay, is I'd rather have somebody that represents the board say, guys, we're on the right, you guys are on the right track. Forget about the market test. I'd like to I'm just saying, Jay, we've got a fiduciary right now, and there's a real live test at Plant Focal that said we had all the right intentions. We were given all the right information, not us, but the board before us. And it's, you know, over $1 billion over budget. There's reasons for it. You're always going to take risks. I'm just saying if we have the opportunity to make sure, and I understand the market test, Jay. I mean, I appreciate that. But the question is, and I'm not talking about holding this up for years. I'm talking about, do we have time to do this?
I think
Dr. Faison?
Yeah, I agree with you, Chair Stein. I like the analogy that you used earlier, and I appreciate the market test as well. But I think that we should act prudently here and seek another opinion here. I just would be more comfortable. Yeah, I agree with you.
Go on.
Well, who's involved in the market test? And is there an opportunity to insert the consultant, maybe individuals from the community that were involved in the IRP process? Can you answer the who for us?
Who is involved in the market test? Yeah, I'll let Pedro go with that.
Thank you, sir. Not a problem. Ray, you were about to say something. We'll pass it on. So the market test is a solicitation process in which we have an outside group that is separated from the project team. There's two separate groups that are working on this. They're defining the criteria. It's commonly done. There are specific items that are expected in a market test to ensure they get evaluated quantitatively and qualitatively. And that is defined. We have a series of teammates here at JEA that have commented on that to ensure it's open, so we don't limit our options. Then that process gets executed by our procurement team. The independent evaluator, Merrimack Energy, who has done this process for many years, is independent on all these processes, even though, so they are going to have to testify on this if it goes forward, and they're also going to be an evaluator. And the mechanism will be that they will evaluate it, and then we'll have to have a report out that is expected to then happen in January with the conclusions of that entire evaluation, the qualitative and quantitative options of the entire total cost for that project. And
Do
how to
we
address it.
have the opportunity to involve the consultant in that process?
Yes, the answer to that is yes. I think as you look at this, schedule here, that there will be opportunities, and I see the outside consultant, the business excellence consultant, or whoever the board deems, these are complementary activities. And the decision to go with that or not comes later in 2025, 2026. So I think getting an outside consultant doesn't conflict with this, but I think that those could be parallel and complementary when you see the milestones here.
Yeah, I think they line up. But we've got to hire a consultant pretty quickly for them to line up. If we take a long time hiring that consultant, they don't line up, and it doesn't appear that the timeline can't work. So I say keep going, but give us, we need updates, regular updates.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive. I think that they can run parallel. I do think we need to move expeditiously on getting the consultant in so that, we can continue the progress.
Yes, I think.
With the information that John mentioned, with the environmental impact, I mean, this is not the combined cycle plant potentially of, 20 years ago. It appears that there's some benefits to it. I just don't want it to be a foregone conclusion that this is a rubber stamp. So I think the analysis needs to be workshopped maybe at our next meeting, but I don't think saying slow down for 30 days is going to get us much, candidly, but it will slow them down.
So
the only thing I would say is, Black and Veatch, Merrimack, they are focused on moving things forward. I think what we want is a second opinion and answer some of these questions, because we can, until we have this person hired, to put ourselves in a position where we're making, this isn't our day job. This is not what we know every day. And to have somebody that does this and does it every day to give us a thought that we've done as a fiduciary, the smartest thing that we can do to move forward.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
I'm completely in agreement with you. We're talking about building a Jaguar Stadium worth of dollars. And if we didn't get a second opinion, we'd be
I'm not suggesting we don't. I just think that when are we going to, the RFP's on the street. when are the responses due?
So the RFP is not on the
Different,
street.
different RFP.
The consultant.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at Ted.
Yeah, so the ITN went out, last Wednesday. Jenny, what was the date that it's due back? The 16th? April 16th. And then, the way that we have it set up is that, staff will be, reviewing those and then recommend a short list to come to the board. I believe that the staff can go through those and make that recommendation in approximately a week. And
So the
and then we can go-
May board meeting?
Probably will be a separate workshop because of the interviews and the time it would take, but sometime in that timeline.
And we're talking 2 or 3 weeks. Before, let's say it takes, and then you have to negotiate. Takes a while to negotiate the contracts around here. So pretend it takes 45 to 60 days. That doesn't bother me. If it was gonna take 6 months, that would bother me.
Yeah, it's gonna take 45 to 60 days to get them on board. Then it's gonna take some time to get them up to speed. I mean, if this was delayed by 2 or 3 months due to this process.
We will work with the board. We have not gone on the street. We have a schedule. We will work with the board and we make sure that we have the appropriate oversight as needed. I think we don't want to 6, 9 months, 12 months is probably.
None of us can afford it.
We have to come back because the regulatory back end discussion that Ricky just talked about is where we are putting ourselves in timing.
Well,
but we're not, we can coordinate.
Yeah, but as I understand the panel is Ted, Laura Shepis, Vicky Cavey is going to be on it, and there's one other.
David.
Who else?
David Emmanuel.
David Emmanuel.
Should there be a board member on there?
No, just let me walk through those.
The next step.
Yeah, they're going to narrow it down. I just say to you guys, if we're going to hire a consultant, it's going to be an expensive process. Let's be smart. If it takes 90, 120 days, let's do this right. And I want to make sure that we're going as fast as possible to find a consultant, that you guys understand we don't want to micromanage, but we got a fiduciary, and let's see if we can sync this up as fast as possible, but be prudent in our process.
But if we I'll go back to my question. Is there an unintended consequence if we tell you today, pencils down on this?
The delays at the back end. We just talked about it. The delays at the back end on the decommissioning of Northside 3 compliance with that regulation, environmental regulation, and coordination of all the other activities.
But you're saying 120 days, 90, 120 days will slow down the completion of this project and put you at risk.
So right now, we are actually backing into that to be able to be in service by March of 2030. Every month and every 3 months, we don't have an accelerated path. This is trying to get all these things effectively, but we can work with that. For my timing, we're not going to go on the street until we get direction from the board.
But it goes back to what are other options? And I just feel like we're in a moment where you kind of keep saying, maybe I'm just hearing it wrong, we got to be ready to open this thing. And I'm like, I don't know that we ever explored other options.
So the options are going to come through the market test, which is
Okay.
what we're going to go and explore. And so I agree.
This would have been a great presentation 6 months ago. I feel like I'm being pushed and without a lot of conversation.
Does this market test, does it look at alternative sources or
Yes.
it looks at already?
It's open. It's completely open, bringing resources that can actually meet this technical needs.
Whether somebody was to build us something or somebody was to sell us something or
That's
somebody,
correct,
I mean,
all of it. So we're basically revisiting some of the offerings maybe that were provided to us last year. This is gonna have a formal process, open, transparent, specific, and say, here's the option, it's gonna be evaluated. And then we will have, Marty, I hear you, and I feel the same way. I wanna see all the options on the table. This process at the beginning on the left side of that picture.
But I think we are, Marty makes a good point, is if there's an alternative, that's a better alternative that comes up in, the market tests, then we're behind to get that going.
No, that's part of the timeline is.
Thank you.
This timeline allows us between now and January to be looking at all the options that are out there and allows us to then make a decision. Do we build or buy, or is there some other option that isn't considered? At the same time, we can bring the consultant that's coming in and run this parallel. If the board wants to hold it for some number of months until we get the other consultant on, we can do that. It puts pressure on meeting the 2030 deadlines that we set for the IRP, and it puts pressure on some of the environmental concerns, which is why we had said retire less efficient units in the proposal. So another alternative would be to run parallel with this.
Yes.
If you want to pause, then we'll pause and get the other consultant on board and start it up later.
Why would we pause? Why don't we keep going? If our guy can't catch up with numbers, we hire the wrong guy.
Or gal.
No, we're through with women.
John, I'm on the women's team.
Between now and
I've been studying trying to.
30 days, I
get
would
there.
say, keep your pencils going, do your thing, and let's reconvene at the next. board meeting.
Let's summarize, I think and I'm trying to get everybody, let's move forward with where we're going, with understanding that we're going to pick up a consultant, hopefully the best woman, I'm on women's team, as fast as possible to do a fiduciary responsibility that we've looked at this. The thing that I'm not completely understanding, we need to move on is the market test. If some other alternative comes up, and it might take 3 to 6 months behind, but it's a better alternative, which way do we go? And I think Marty's right. We're in a position where we don't have time to make that thoughtful decision. But I want to end this and say, thanks for everything you guys are doing. Understand why we need to do what we're doing. And let's be as smart as we can of moving forward the best opportunity for, as John says, this is going to cost what it's going to cost to renovate the Jaguar Stadium, but it touches every customer in our community, and let's do it right, both environmentally, as far as cost, and as far as making the smartest decision.
Chair Stein, before we end, could we hear from Ray? She had insights to add to this.
Absolutely.
Well, Chair Stein said it all, but what I would add, because this is a lot, and we recognize the need for due diligence before we commit to large capital expenditures. So this is one part of this board meeting. I think it would do all of us well to go deeper into this. Jay had mentioned about a workshop, and to go into the intricacies, more into the question and answer on the market test analysis, on the need for power. And the only other thing that I would mention is we are wide open on any good alternatives to meet the customer's demand. When we built Greenland, we did not conduct a market test. We were focused on that. But the fact that we're doing this for this means there aren't any predispositions for the answer, but that we want to look at everything. But I think if the board chooses to workshop this, to go into the intricacies, we're willing to do that.
Ray, you make a good point, but until we hire somebody that can help us think through this, to do a workshop without that support, so first of all, thank you guys. Let's be smart here. I don't think we just want to make sure we're making the right decision, and as fast as we can make the right decision, we want to make the right decision for our community. With that, electric rates.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Erickson has to do his part. He's happy.
All right, thank you. We can move through this, I think, fairly quickly. Last month, we talked to you. We had our public hearing about the electric rate adjustment. We've been talking to you for several months about that. The information that we have provided in today's packet is very similar. The one thing that has changed is this slide. So we have been comparing the December 23rd residential 1,000 kilowatt per month customer bill from December of 23 and April of 23 to what the proposed rate increase would be. So the base change stays the same at $2.75. But as you heard Nancy speak to earlier, natural gas prices have continued to decline. And so now our projection for the April fuel charge is lower. And so actually, if you compare an April 24 to April 23, you see almost a $7 drop. If you compare to December, it's a little over $1.30 drop. I think what we presented last month showed the December to April being about 88 cents more. So the lower price in fuel has continued to work in our favor, in the customer's favor. So just wanted to highlight that. This slide is exactly as we had proposed at the last couple of meetings, where it breaks down by class what gets adjusted.
You need another slide.
And then we have the tariff documentation, changes to the tariff documentation. This summary we have provided to you before. Be happy to answer any questions on either one of these. And then our recommendation would be to approve the resolution that is included in your package that changes the rates and updates some of the tariff documentation. Be happy to answer any questions. I know we kind of went through that fast, but we have been talking about this for several months now, so.
We have been talking about this for a long time. I want to make sure people are tuning in for their first time to a JEA board meeting know that we have, the one thing that I think still is a little unanswered for me, and I'm very supportive, but if we look at the base rate go forward, we really have to have a great understanding of what our operating expenses are. And I've articulated in the past that I get where we are in fuel. I think you guys have done a great job on fuel, but I do think that I think that's in scope with the consultant is really going into our operating expenses, because that's what drives the base rate.
Yes, ma'am, and that you gave my answer. So I do believe that the ITN that we've been speaking about earlier, we'll look at that. But these increases do need to happen because we are continuing to have increases with Plant Vogel that's coming online as well, and we don't have as much. Well, we don't have very much control.
Yeah, and I'm talking about
but I understand what you're saying.
The expenses we control.
Yes, ma'am.
There's some that we don't, a lot that we don't.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I move to approve.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up is Sheila on the historical east side, restore and repair.
Thank you, Mr. Stein and Board of Directors. I am here this morning along with Tim Hunt to share an update on a project that began nearly a year ago. And the project, the topic was first introduced at a board retreat. We recognize that there are communities in Jacksonville that are spending higher percentages of their income on utilities, partially because of the envelope of the property where they reside. So we've identified communities that have an overexpression of their consumption due to these reasons, and we have mobilized to improve the envelope of the home and the condition of their lives. So Tim Hunt is about to share the details of the weatherization program for homes in the historic east side, out east of Jacksonville. Preserving these historic homes for the families that reside in them is an act of responsibility we owe future generations. Investing in weatherization creates jobs and stimulates local economies. It empowers communities to take control of their environmental impact while safeguarding their cultural heritage. I am honored to be a part of something bigger than us. And on behalf of the collective we, that's JEA, the partner agencies who are here today, contractors, and the families that have been helped, thank you, Marty Lanahan, for being the spark that gave this life-altering endeavor wings. We are forever grateful to you and for your leadership.
Y'all did the work.
And with that,
It's good work.
introduce Tim Hunt.
Thank you, Sheila. Can everybody hear me? So as Sheila said, I want to thank Sheila as well as Vice Chair Lanahan for championing this work and posing the challenge. What is it that we can do to assist homeowners in the historic east side with their energy usage? As I hope to communicate this morning, what started off as a modest pilot focused on 15 homes has become something much larger than we initially anticipated, thanks to the individuals and agencies supporting this work. While historic east side is financially challenged, it does have a proud history. It's situated just to the east of the city's urban core, as you can see in the map here. It spans from the stadium to the north of 20th Street. Among the economic challenges, 2/3 of the customers in this community pay more than 6% of their income for energy consumption. And that's above what the industry defines as energy burden. Median household income in the community is less than $25,000 per year, and 35% of the residents have not completed high school. But while there are significant financial challenges, historic East Side has a proud history. It's one of the oldest parts of Jacksonville and was settled by recently freed people after the Civil War. It's comprised of vernacular or bungalow-style architecture, which are rectangular wooden structures, usually built on stilts. In terms of the pride of this history, it comes from not just its current day residents, but from some from the past. Among them, the co-founder of the American Civil Rights Movement, A. Philip Randolph, James Weldon Johnson, an artist and leading figure of the Harlem Renaissance and the first African-American to pass the bar exam in Florida, and Bob Hayes, Olympian and professional athlete. This neighborhood was recently added to the National Historic Register of Historic Places. As I mentioned at the start here that this effort has become something more than what it initially started as. And one example of this is the addition of Lisa Platt to the team from U.S. Institute for Built Environment Resilience. In her role, Lisa is providing a voice to these residents through her survey work, assessing their housing and quality of life concerns, some of which you can see on the slide now. In addition, Lisa is bringing design standards that can be incorporated into the work, allowing us to seek regenerative design certification, which we believe has the potential to help us attract more grant dollars as well as private donations. A list of the agencies and groups that have been instrumental in this effort to date. And one name that I'm proud to say that we can add to this now is the City of Jacksonville, after a meeting that we've had with representatives from them. They're going to also be joining in to the future work with this program and bringing their expertise and resources as well. This slide demonstrates the dollars spent to date among three different broad categories. The JEA, Neighborhood Energy Efficiency Measures, which is our regular energy efficiency program that we have available to residents in Jacksonville. The structural repairs that have been supported through agencies like LIFT-JAX and LIST. And then the additional energy efficiency measures, which are energy efficiency measures above and beyond what we would offer through our NEE program. And overall, you can see to date, we've spent on average close to $20,000 per house. Quite a bit of funding for sure. But as part of the return on this, we can look at stabilizing inhabitability of these homes through the new roofs and structural repairs that will preserve the homes, comfort and health improvements through the reduction of air leakage, the value of the homes themselves for the homeowners, as well as helping to preserve the community by preserving these historical structures. In this slide here, we have some objective measures that were taken as we went into the homes and audited the energy efficiency of them, and then the post after the work was done, what were those measurements? And so this is done through what's known as a blower door test. You basically bring in a fan, set it up in the door, and you test for what the air leakage is in terms of cubic feet per minute, with the ideal being that the auditor is going to coordinate closely with your construction manager. You're going to identify where we're seeing these leaks at and what repairs need to be made to improve the sealing of that envelope. You can see in the picture there, you can see the house is wrapped in some Home Depot envelope covering there. And those are the types of repairs that make these improvements here. So we measured about a 27% impact to the air leakage pre and post work, which is going to have a big impact on the energy consumption. In all, we estimate from these three different areas of improvements about a $44 per month savings for the folks who have had the improvements made. Next steps, so what do we have coming up? So LIFT-JAX, again, one of our agencies that's involved in this, they're recruiting a program administrator who's going to oversee this program and take it beyond the pilot where we're at now to a long-term sustainable program so that we'll have more consistent support on this. Historic East Side also looking to hire full-time community case manager to serve as a single source of contact between the project itself and the homeowners. University of Florida, as I mentioned, Lisa Platt, who is working to identify the health benefits upon completion of the work. And we're currently seeking a grant through the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to again provide more resources to this effort. We're recruiting additional partners for program participation. Wherever we can find them, more the merrier. And one of the very recent developments was the awarding of $845,000 to this program through the city, through JEA, from the Department of Energy, through the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. So this is going to provide a huge boost as well as additional funding from United Way that's going to allow us to get the full-scale program up and moving very quickly. We're targeting mid to late May to begin work on the first block, what we're calling post-pilot homes. And with that, I'd actually like to recognize, if I could, that we have a number of team members here that have been participating on this project. And I'd ask everybody who's been part of the R3 program, if you would stand up, please.
Can you take the time to introduce everybody and raise their hand? Because this is a great group of people.
Yes, we have John Sephora, we have from LISC, we also have David Garfunkel from Lift Jacks. We have Susan Pickett from Historic Eastside CDC. We have Elizabeth Paulson, who's been a very great supporter of this program throughout from JEA. And Jamie Smalley, who has been instrumental in getting the grant dollars for us. Great team here. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Brian Pippin, who wasn't able to join us this morning due to sore throat, as well as Lisa Platt from University of Florida.
So can I jump in? I know we're running out of time, but I don't want
No,
to.
Marty, let's take time and do this right.
This is a celebration moment. And
Yeah, but wait 1 second. The work you did, the passion the people in the audience did, it's what makes the difference in our community. So thank you. So it's your floor.
Well, that team got together every Friday morning for about an hour, every Friday morning. And had to, if the JEA just showed up knocking on doors in Old East, it wasn't going to work. We had to have the buy-in of the neighborhood, and we did. And really appreciate that. And, y'all know me, I'm a little impatient. And I kept saying, when are we going to do this more broadly than 15 pilot homes? But I really applaud the team slowing down to do it right. So we really do have a model that's replicatable. And this is one of the best examples of public-private partnerships that I have ever seen. And I'm looking forward to taking it to the next step. With the Department of Energy validation is really pretty cool. But we've got a lot of people in this community who'd be interested in funding this effort because of the impact of keeping people in their homes. The economic impact of keeping people in their homes is incredible. And I'm excited, but Sheila, remind me, Tim, how many homes in our ratepayer constituency need this kind of work? Remind me of the numbers.
Yeah, if we're looking at 20% of the least efficient homes in terms of energy usage, the lowest 20%. And so we're looking at roughly 35,000 homes in community.
So our most vulnerable ratepayers who we've had speak to us during our rate increases, when we've had to raise rates, we're talking about a lot of people who we need to do a lot of work. And I think we're the only utility in the country that is really trying to embrace this work the way we're embracing it. So I'm really proud. And thank you, Jay. I know you supported this group. Sheila started this by telling me at a retreat that her team was having a hard time talking to people when they called in saying, I can't afford the rate increases. And then we found out they needed help with their homes. And I'll give Sheila and her team credit for this because they really put a voice and put a person's face into the challenges that we were seeing with increased rates. But you'll have the benefit as we move forward of hearing some of the testimonies of these homeowners, and it's really special. It's really special. But we've got a lot more work to do. And the community commitment, again, thank you, everybody. I didn't make all those calls on Friday mornings, but they never missed one.
Well, Sheila, Jay, Marty, thanks for y'all's leadership. The people that live this every day, thank y'all. to move on, I'll hand it to Rick.
Thank you. Bobby, at your request, the staff met with board member Morales and John Baker on March 7th to review previously items that were brought forth at the February 22nd Finance and Government Audits Committee meeting. In addition, the staff reviewed the alternative delivery method utilized for these projects, as well as the internal audit in conjunction with two of the projects that utilize this alternative delivery method, specifically Contract Manager at Risk, or CMAR. Staff provided a thorough review of each project and scope. We started with the current status and the future work. Detailed worksheets were provided to the board in the supplement material. Also, staff provided information on a recent very large project that utilizing the traditional design bid build model, where only one bid was received, and that project being sent back to the drawing board to figure out what's the best delivery method for it at this point. Board members concurred that the internal audit recommendations and contract implementation to clarify more easily the information provided by the contractor with invoices with every draw to be more timely instead of everything being brought forth at the end. And also, we also talked in depth about the labor rates that were brought forth in the contracts to be actual labor rates and not just a blended number that was presented. Board members recommended soliciting alternative delivery contract to include the valuation and the contractor's approach to each project in the delivery model. We are constrained somewhat by state statutes, and we're trying to work through what the best delivery model is. Finally, staff needs to put in place systems so we don't find ourselves in a situation again where we're bringing projects being brought to us that are already substantially complete or well under construction. So I would bring forward that we ratify the projects that were listed on slide 52, but not all the projects that were brought forward, because some of them are being sent back for value engineering and further evaluation. Right?
Thank you, Board Member Morales. If you can move to the next slide. So first, I want to express appreciation staff does to Mr. Morales as well as Mr. Baker for spending, I think, some very, very good time in reviewing the projects as well as the delivery methods. So this is a summary, basically, of those projects that were brought forth at the February 22nd Finance, Governance, and Audit Committee meeting. And the request is for ratification for all 5 of these projects. And for 2 of them, Nassau Water Reclamation Facility Expansion, number 3, as well as Southwest, we're also requesting additional funding for additional work that has not been awarded. And as Mr. Morales said, there are additional projects. One is not listed here that will be coming back to the board, as well as I think the majority of the projected expenditures on project number 5, the Buckman Water Reclamation Facility, which will be coming back to the board. And we are here along with our VP of Water Wastewater, Haivu, to answer any questions or present this in detail as we did at the workshop.
John, you were there. Any other added comments?
No, if Rick's comments were a motion, I would second it and go on to say that I think this gives us, it gave me great pause, because just like the project we talked about earlier in electric, we're spending huge amounts of money, and the board has not been involved. And there either needs to be a committee of the board that reviews capital projects and gets updated frequently, or we need to do it as a body of the whole. But this is a new era for JEA, and we're going to be spending lots of money, and we've got to be very focused on capital.
Well, first of all, if it's a motion and a second, I'd start discussion, and the discussion I would say is, first of all, thank you, John. Thank you, Rick, for really digging in. And again, the attention is on us, and it's not trying to micromanage. It's just we've got to know what's going on, when it's going on, and making sure that we have the best knowledge possible when we move these things forward. So I hope you guys hear us. And we're trying to do the best job we can to understand the best we can when we move these things forward. Any other discussion?
No, I appreciate y'all taking the time to review the specific projects. And I guess process evaluation is the next step.
Right. We talked about the contracting process evaluation, and we made some suggestions for moving forward in the future contracts. The other thing that has to be worked on is when these are coming forward to us and so forth, because this the combined cycle plant or whatever the alternative is, there are going to be a number of major contracts along that way. And, you know, the last thing we want to do is not find out about them until they're basically signed and dealed and, okay, well, here it is. And we need to be part of that process is what was.
Well, thank you, guys. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is supply chain update. Ray, I hate to do this, but there's certain board members that have time constraints. So if we can move this fairly quickly, that'd be helpful. And I hate to do this. Yeah.
Oh, no problem with that. Totally understand. So this is an information item. It's not an action item. We've been here before for the board's awareness. And quick summary, the challenges continue to be the larger three-phase transformers, despite our mitigation efforts, and they are impacting our current customers. I will say, because I think this is important to note, that we used to be here talking about residential transformers, and so we've turned the page as far as that is concerned. And with that, we're ready to reinitiate the neighborhood assessment program, which is basically those neighborhoods that want to do overhead to underground. Next, please. So this basically gives an overview of, on the left there are the customers that are currently on hold. So they finished their portion and they're waiting to be re-energized. And on the right are the potential delays. So you can see it goes from 4 months, potential to almost 12 months. I will say for the one that is 12 months, we have partially re-energized, at least give a partial solution to that. But we stay in constant communication, stay working with these customers. And if anything changes as far as supply or demand, these numbers would also change. And finally, as far as the mitigation efforts, I've talked about partial energization, looking at underutilized transformers. I want to give some kudos to our procurement team as far as adding more suppliers, looking at added a Canadian supplier, as well as Korean and Chinese suppliers. And so trying to address this from all different facets, but yet our customers are still unfortunately impacted. And I will say, including JEA customers, 2 of those that are currently waiting are 2 of our facilities, our water facilities that are waiting for transformers as well. So everyone is being impacted by this. That's the summary.
Ray, thank you so much. Joe DeSalvo.
Yeah, hi, Bobby. First, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so let me give you a back brief on the Finance, Governance, and Audit Committee. We held a workshop on March 12th. I was joined by fellow committee members Kwanzaa Humphrey as well as Board Chair Stein. There were no public comments. And at the recommendation of Chair Stein, the committee discussed hiring a senior consultant that will report to the board. This role will serve as a liaison to gather and report information on products assigned by the board. Following this report, Chair Stein will provide a thorough review of this role and present the item for the board's consideration and action. We talked about the invitation to negotiate, and as a follow-up to discussions at the February 28th board meeting, staff prepared a draft invitation to negotiate, or ITN. Prior to the March 12th meeting, board members were provided the draft ITN along with the list of consulting firms that are invited to bid. The goal is to select a qualified and experienced consulting firm that will develop a comprehensive plan to optimize JEA's operational and capital efficiencies while reducing expenses and providing the best value to JEA and its customers. We will not be looking at price as the only marker for value. Value will be defined as it relates to pricing, firm, and personal experience and design approach. This company will also need to have experience with municipalities as well as local and state regulations. Board members held robust conversations on required qualifications, evaluation criteria, and the timeline. Candidates must have at least 2 references showing related work within the last 5 years. The evaluation criteria will consist of estimated costs for 10 points, qualifications 30 points, past experience 30 points, and design approach 30 points for a total of 100. The evaluation panel, consisting of awards committee members Ted Phillips, Laura Shepis, David Emanuel, and a senior consultant, will review the initial evaluations in mid-April and narrow the candidates down to the top 2 to 3. The committee is open to a special meeting if necessary to complete the evaluation. Final candidates will be asked to come to the May 21st, will be asked to come no later than the May 21st board meeting to provide a presentation. At that time, the board and evaluation panel will have the ability to score the candidates and decide on the awarded consultant. The scoring criteria for these presentations will consist of experience and professional personnel, 20 points, past performance, company experience, 20 points, and design approach, 60 points. To ensure compliance with this process, Regina Ross, Chief Legal Officer with the Office of General Counsel, will put together a training class for the board and the awards panel. I'm happy to report that the ITN went out on March 20th, which was said previously. Should board members have questions, Lisa Pleasant, Senior Manager Sourcing, will be the point of contact for the board. The board services manager will provide Lisa's contact following the board meeting. Standing by for any questions.
Any questions?
2 questions. Did I hear you say that the price is not part of the evaluation?
It is, but it's a smaller piece.
I thought it was 10%. I thought I misheard that.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that price be a part. And I promise you, if I was voting, it would be higher than 10%, but I understand where we're going. The thought is as we reached out, it was a very broad scope that we asked them to look at O&M, capital, operations, and I wonder if we should focus it more. And if that's not what we want to do, then I think it would make sense to let the bidders know that the first thing we want them to look at is capital, especially with respect to that electric plant.
Yeah.
And so that we don't get that mixed in with a lot of other things.
Well, I want to make sure we do it right. I think one thing I'd say, John, is there is a lot of focus on us right now. I want to make sure that we are thoughtful in how we work through this. I think certain parts are gonna happen quickly, certain parts we can decide as phases, which I hope the original evaluation committee can think through. I think the first priority, as I see, is O&M capital. And I think there should be some KPIs as far as our SG&A is concerned that we're making sure we're thoughtful on, which shouldn't be that, time consuming. I think we can see what industry, what is going on in this industry and how we're reflecting as far as the industry is concerned. I think that would be, but I think we should break this down in phases. But as you said, O&M, I think we should look at, because we are spending a lot of money on O&M. We are spending a lot of money on capital. And again, the people that are part of this process, and I said to Jay and Laura Shepis and Vicky the other day is, I hope to get this group at least interviews on Zoom, 6 or 7 of these guys. So to me, when I'm interviewing people, I'm learning. And before we get down to the 2, that would be my suggestion. I think price is important, but I think I just want everybody to know, if we're gonna spend this kind of money in the next 4 years, $4 billion, we should be making sure we've got the right people in place. And I don't discount that we shouldn't be thoughtful on this, but we should also be smart on this.
We should also benchmark ourselves against municipally owned utilities. There's a very big difference in the spend of a publicly owned utility than a municipally owned utility.
Yeah.
So I'm challenging the group that's making the first decision to really dig into the experience levels for municipally owned utilities.
I also think we can do all 3 things. And I think that the beauty of the ITN process really allows us the flexibility after we select the best firm, then in the ITN, we can build what the timeline is, what the structure is, what the phases are, and even put in phases that are optional phases down the road, depending on what we learn. I think we can put this in the right order to accomplish the task that you're wanting to do and narrow it down so that we get the right thing to begin with. And then we have decision points along the way to say, okay, that we got enough information or we need more. So I think that's why the ITN works well.
I think the only other thing I'd say to this group before they present, we can have a special board member meeting. Let's make sure we do this right methodically. Because we're going to live with these people for quite a long time. And I think making sure we're methodical on these decisions would be my suggestion. Next up, the hiring of a JEA board advisor. I suggested that we get full board approval, but of all the things we're talking about today, I think it's important to have somebody that understands the industry, understands JEA, understands the culture, understands our community. And I was getting a lot of concerns from the community, some good, some bad. You always want to think you're always having good, you're always right. But I think after a certain period of time, I think we all need to learn. So with that, I start saying who could help us that have worked with Jay in the past, has experience. And Vicky, bless her heart, has come out of retirement to work with us. Vicky has worked with 5 of the 6 CEOs, last CEOs. The one she did not work with is not having a good month. And worked with Paul when he came back, worked with Jay in an interim position. And I think on the first thing is O&M and capital. We've talked a lot about having some experts there as far as the reorg. I think just working with Jay to have a different look at the reorg to make sure we're doing this and doing it right. I like to have a motion to move ahead with.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I want to say one other thing. Marty, bless her heart, is traveling a lot, and she's decided to leave the board, and she's never going to leave the board because she has the heart and soul of JEA, and she's got the heart and soul, and is at our age, you don't look up to certain people, but to see how, talking about women, as a leader in the financial institution business, as a single mom, it just gives me chilly bumps of all she does, and she does it with a smile. And, my daughter's a single mom, and just, you say, how can you learn from somebody? Marty is somebody you learn from, and that she's smart, but she has that smile. And you talk about women leadership. She is that women leader that we all aspire and think through. So I just want to thank you, want to give a round of applause for everything.
We're not going to do that again because I think I'm serving until there's a replacement.
Yes.
And I don't think there's a replacement going through the process yet.
But your
But
commitment to JEA, whether you're on the board or not, will always be something to think.
I am not going far.
Well, that's important. The other thing I just want everybody to realize is we all have got to be thoughtful of, we're not going to sell the JEA as far as a lot of us are involved, but we also want to be the best. And I think sometime we've got to look at what we're doing, how we're doing it. In this reorg, the biggest comments that I've got is, people that don't live in our service area. And we have one of the greatest communities in the country. And if we can't hire people in our service area, I think we should very, very reflect on that, because I think it's important. And I think it shows some concerns in our community. And I think I tasked Jay, I tasked Vicky to look at that and look at that strongly. I make sure that we are thinking through where we have waste in the organization, where we need help in the organization. And I'm saying this as somebody that loves JEA, loves the people here, loves the people that commit here. But I think we need some reflection. And that's how I'll leave this meeting as chair. I think Joe DeSalvo, we've got a great new leader in the chairman of the JEA, and Joe, and he served our country and made difference every day. And I think we're going to have a special person to take us and reflect on some of the things we just talked about. Is there any other comments?
Hard to follow that.
Yeah, I was going to say, thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bobby. We appreciate you.
Meeting's adjourned.